We also kind of took a step back and looked at the grand landscape of software as a whole. And a lot of the largest companies, what they're doing is they're raising capital with the idea that, hey, we're going to take this money with this capital and ramp up sales, right?
Today by co-founder of Robin, Alex of Go High Level. In case you guys don't know who that is, I promise you I will have a link in the in the description of this video. First of all, thank you so much for taking some time to hop on here with me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. And so today I just kind of want to just talk about 2022 in review. It was definitely an interesting year, especially with, kind of coming out of COVID and everything's kind of seems getting back more in person. You guys were able to have your first in-person event, global in-person event. That was super awesome. I got to go to that. You guys obviously got some fundraising. You guys got a massive expansion of your labor force, tons of new developers, engineers, all different kinds of stuff. I've been lucky enough to watch pretty closely as it's all grown. I really just wanted to start with, highlight. What's the number one highlight if you had to think of for 2022 for Go High Level, as an app and as a business? What do you think has been your number one highlight this year?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say it's the growth of the company as a whole, the amount of people that we brought on. It's a lot of ups and downs and challenges along the way, right? Like when you're aggressively hiring, it's a shock to the business. It's all of a sudden there's a ton of new faces, everyone trying to figure out the lay of the land. You start getting, a lot of the older team members who've been around for a while, they're in their way, they're in their rhythm, they know what's going in. And then it's one thing to bring two people or three people to the party and kind of get them up to speed, but now
Yeah.
10x that, right? Now you're talking about 20
Yeah.
or 30 people, and it's like, what in the world are we doing, or how do we do it? And even the strategies and approaches changes when you're bringing in that many new team members, and then you also got to get new back office teams to support
Yeah.
the right. Like you got to have teams to support the teams, and it's like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah. Things
Uh,
don't really scale, linearly. It's more exponential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, on the flip side of it, it's the same thing with our customers. We're learning a lot along the way. And, while we had crazy growth in 22, I also think, a majority of our customers, mostly the ones that have been around for a while, had crazy growth in 22.
Yeah.
Such as yourself,
Right.
22 just, I think not only are people coming into the ecosystem of high level and what the capabilities are, the creativity that people have is
Yeah.
insane, right?
Yeah.
Like we came into the market and today, we're looking at ourselves as being the agency platform. We can help agencies win. But what's crazy is people are using the platform to doing all sorts of other
All
stuff
kinds
that's
of
just
stuff.
insane, right? And we're having to backfill those needs as best as we can. And being able to ramp up, and we're hearing success stories of agencies or SaaSpreneurs who are blowing up at like crazy levels where they have you know 5,000 customers, 10,000 customers, like what in the world?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how is that even possible? And they're like, yeah, we did it in 6 months or 8 months. So it's just, that crazy rapid growth on all fronts
Right.
is, if I could wrap it with a little bow on the top, it's that.
The growth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. It's super exciting. And so talking about that growth, I feel like a lot of it does have to do with the SaaS model in general. And, for those who are kind of like, what is SaaS? Software as a service. It's basically instead of you as a marketing agency, as a business owner needing to go out of your way, develop a software from the ground up, you're able to use a pre-built solution and then customize it for your own needs. And, you get to kind of pawn off a lot of the maintenance, development issues, engineering side of stuff, and mostly focused on the business side. And so this is not necessarily a new concept though, right? I mean, SaaS has kind of been around for a while now. It's just, what do you feel like has been the biggest changes, I guess, and like kind of where that whole industry is going?
I mean, I think it's, for us, the way that we wanted to come into the market was sharing the wealth and bringing it down to people that couldn't have that capability in the past. Being white labeled isn't a new concept. Having software, that was once on premise, now in the cloud is not a new concept. I think ultimately the new concept is letting people be a part of that revenue stream because
Mhm.
ultimately you're the one doing the work. And so shouldn't you be compensated through that process, right? And that's
Right.
where we feel like we're different, and really what's, helping us grow is because we want everyone to be involved, to be a part of the party.
Yeah.
As businesses are growing, you're getting a piece of the pie. And, because everyone is winning, the small business is winning because it's a great platform and the agency or the SaaSpreneur is doing great work. The SaaSpreneur is finally getting paid 360 degrees around everything.
Right.
Previously it's, yeah, I'm getting paid, but I got to spend money to get, these other products just to make that delivery happen. And,
Sure.
if the agency's winning and now actually making sustainable dollars,
Yeah.
we'll win on the back end, but it's everybody winning. And that's the greatest thing about it. And I think the fundamental difference of how, we're starting to see a lot of other companies try to figure out how they can play in that same model as well.
For sure.
Um, but I would say the biggest challenge that they're having is, you've been around for so long. It's hard to change that big cruise liner and get it to
Sure.
turn around, right? Like
Sure.
it's a
Yeah.
big
And
shift.
I definitely see that with people like Google, even for example, like Google Cloud is coming out as a SaaS provider themselves almost, where they've got tons of microservices that they want you to, enable and connect together, but it's a lot more developer focused versus, with you guys, it's not necessarily as heavily developer focused. It's more strategy focused. How can you utilize the tool to your best? So one thing in this revolution that I definitely got to talk to you about, raising the capital you guys raised. And from what I read, the article, I believe it was 66 million. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not somewhere around there. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so was this seed obviously it wasn't pre-seed, but seed, or was it series A? This is the first time you guys ever raised?
Yeah, it was definitely our first time getting raised. And so if we were to put it again, so we weren't officially a series round per se, but if you wanted to compare it, it'd be close to a series A.
Okay.
We were bootstrapped for the first 3 years. Lucky for us, we were, and we were definitely watching our dollars and stuff like that. So we were profitable and doing extremely well. And the cool thing about it was we really didn't need the capital. What we
Hmm.
were really looking for is, because we're growing at such an accelerated rate, we wanted to make sure that, can we de-risk the company slightly by getting some assistance along the way. The bigger that you're getting, we're talking about the hiring and growth and stuff
Right.
like that, and we're walking into uncharted territories. You
Right.
know, we've
Yeah.
never had a business. Well, all three of us, Sean, Vern, and me, have been a part of different ventures. We've never had a business grow this fast at this level,
Right.
and for us to continue growing, we could have kept it the same and customers would have come in and we would have done it, but things like, do we go public or do we, do other
Yeah.
things, like we're walking in uncharted territories. And
Yeah.
so why not find an organization that would partner with us? And one of the biggest strategies through that was, because we didn't need the funding, it was kind of this weird thing of where people were telling us no, not in the sense that they didn't want to invest into us. It's, we don't know how to help you guys, because
Yeah.
usually it's like you
Yeah.
follow our playbook and we're doing
Right.
stuff in a very unorthodox manner. They're
Right.
like, yeah, we can't flip to page 11 and you guys follow those and you'll fix your problem, because page
Yeah.
11 is irrelevant in your guys'
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah, man. And that's awesome. And so it wasn't more so like we need the physical cash right now. It's more so of, we now see where this is going to go and where it can go. But getting there on your own is just, like, it's not that it's impossible, I feel like, but I feel like it would have brought a lot more challenges and definitely not been as smooth,
Yeah, definitely
of a
that.
rise.
And speed. We're a
Right.
very fast company,
Mm,
and so I always talk about finding the escape hatch to move faster.
yeah,
If we try to figure it out ourselves, it could take a long time,
sure.
because you gotta get some
You got to make
punches to the
mistakes. You got
face.
to, yeah, you
Yeah,
got to
yeah, yeah.
fail. Got to
You gotta
fail
take
and
that
fail.
punch to the chin a few times, right?
Yeah.
But if kind of in the marketing space or just business, people always talk about getting mentors or stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is our version of that.
Yeah.
And luckily for us, it was kind of a reverse aspect of, like, we got the mentorship by them,
Sure.
investing in the company as well.
Yeah, makes sense. And so, following post investment, I mean, I'm sure you guys were already poised to explode in staff size anyway and need to hire a bunch of people anyway. But I could see, just from an outside perspective, just how significant of the hiring effort really ramped up after you guys especially started to push the global event, which was a lot of fun, by the way, in Dallas. You guys did a
Yeah.
great job with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so in that hiring effort, right, that's one of the biggest things that I think a lot of SaaS founders, especially like people who are wanting to actually build a software solution from the ground up, not just white label, but also own the actual code base, and maybe they have their own unique spin on it that they want to do. finding developers can definitely be finding team members in general. Forget technical team members, just team members all around. Finding and placing and retaining, definitely one of the biggest challenges I can see coming up, especially in the new year with inflation being where it's at and salary expectations being as high as they are. So how are you guys planning to combat that? How did you guys overcome some of those challenges this year? And what would you advise to somebody who's, maybe in the earlier stages of trying to hire?
Yeah, it's definitely a never-ending cycle, and kind of in that intro that you did, the one part that you forgot is retaining your existing team,
Right.
because that like there's this like weird cycle because we had to hire at an accelerated rate. It's very easy to forget the existing team and the hard work that they're putting in. They're holding on the fort while you're trying to, forge, trying to find new people. And if you don't give them attention too, you're at risk of losing great team members who have got you to where you're at. So it's kind of playing this like, you're juggling on both sides.
Right.
And at the same time, you need to make sure that the new team is coming in feeling like they fit the culture. And so, things that we definitely are working on still today and still trying to figure out is how do we hire aggressively and quickly? And this is partnering with different companies, recruiting companies. We have internal recruiters in-house. So it's kind of any possible way to find good talent,
Yeah.
let's bring it in.
Yeah.
And then from there it's making sure that you have a very buttoned down interview process, because that's also a time suck in many ways, right?
Right.
It's to find one person, you got to go through 10 people.
Yeah.
And who's doing those interviews? It's usually one of the strongest players on your team, because
For sure.
and then
Yeah.
you're taking away their time, right?
Yeah.
And we do a series interview, so you have maybe 5 or 6 interviews with different people, whether it's a technical one, whether it's a culture fit, whether it's a management meeting, so we have different layers that you have to go through. And so you're talking about one candidate might be burning up 5 hours of time,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then if you do extend the offer, there's a time of negotiating that
For
comes in,
sure.
then
Yeah.
onboarding, making sure their equipment comes in, and then once
Yeah.
they come in, you got to make sure they have a great onboarding experience, because you want to make sure that they're retained and
Right.
feel like it's a company that they want to be
Yeah.
at. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a bigger challenge than just hiring new people.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing that I would say is, with the way the economy is working, it's still competitive. It's still a very competitive landscape, because if I think in tech in general, there's this washout that's happening. Some of the
Mhm.
biggest tech companies out there, but then you hear the other stories. We have 10 million available jobs out there, and we
Yeah.
can't find enough people. So
Yeah.
what's really happening there? And I think it's just the tech side. These large companies overhired historically, and
Sure.
it's just kind of cleaning house in many ways. And now of
Sure.
course you hear some extreme stories like Twitter and stuff like that, but as a whole, I think it's through COVID it was just hire as much as you can.
Sure.
Your
Sure.
team is probably 50, but go ahead and bring it up to 150. And
Sure.
then now it's okay, now let's kind of do a little cut and bring that team back to 75. But now
Mhm.
you get to peel away some of your weaker talent,
Sure.
perceptually. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now.
Right.
And so there's this huge pool of people, but because there's talented individuals out there, they want to make sure they're working for the right company. So they're a little bit more selective when they do these interviews and stuff. So you
Exactly.
just have to kind of play the game there. Um, and I think in the internet marketing space, there's this like perceptual side of like find the cheapest person possible.
Right.
And I think I kind of look at it, and us as an organization is, you got to pay for the right talent and pay the
Sure.
premium, because it's going to be 10x on the back end and what they're going to be
Sure.
delivering, whether it's customer service to development or whatever. You want to pay that premium because it's going to pay dividends a
Right.
lot quicker than getting someone on the low end who doesn't take it seriously. They're working 3 other jobs because they're
Yeah.
trying to game the system. Like it just turns into a negative experience. It kind of gives you slower growth on the back end as well.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And, obviously I've hired my fair share of developers as well from all over the place. And yeah, you can oftentimes find that the ones who are the most budget constrained, the ones who are willing to just accept the lowest possible amount, yeah, like you said, they'll have another job, or they'll have, just they won't really care too much about it. Like, especially with technical work, I found, because you have to give corrections a lot. That's
Mhm.
where it really comes in, is when you ask somebody to accomplish something, they give you their initial draft, you got to revise it.
Yep.
that kind of effort, extra effort of going through and revising it and making changes, if they're not getting paid, or they don't have some kind of incentive that makes them really motivated for it, I feel like it's definitely a lot harder to get them to.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that vested interest, right? Like
For sure.
they're not going to take it seriously if they're
Yeah,
not, feeling like they're compensated for their time and effort and skill that they're bringing to the table.
for sure. Yeah. And you guys have pretty much always been a global team, right? I mean, your technical co-founder, Varun, is in India, or he's in Qatar
He's
now,
in
but he
Qatar.
wasn't.
Yeah,
Has he always been in Qatar since you guys started, or was he in India
yeah.
before?
He's always been in Qatar. He's originally
Gotcha.
from India, but yeah, he's always been in Qatar. Sean's in Oregon, and then I'm in Dallas.
So you
Um,
guys are on 3 different time zones. One of them is on the other side of the world. So like, how did you guys make that work? How do you manage that?
there's a lot of crossover time. Um, but we make it work in the sense of we're a 24/7 company,
Yeah.
and there's always someone available, someone always around, able to help, and anything that comes up. So it's worked out naturally for us. And I think, just having strong team members that kind of, that help us along the way make it so much easier as well. And so, that's really what it comes down to, is just having it doesn't matter about us three as co-founders.
Right.
It's really about how strong the team is beneath
Yeah.
us. And, we've been very fortunate that, since we started, we've always had great, talented people and, really love the mission and what we were trying to accomplish. And,
Yeah.
they're able to hold the fort in many
Yeah.
ways themselves.
And for a lot of again, the people that are kind of in that development space, or maybe they want to be in the development startup space, I've noticed that one big issue, and I actually talked about this with one of your head of engineering. What we talked about is communication, right? The communication issue, especially with engineers, because the last thing you'll ever hear from a really dedicated engineer is, no, I cannot do this. I don't know how to do this, right? You'll always get a, yes, I can do this. Got it. No problem. And then you find out on the back half when it's supposed to be delivered that there were a lot of issues, or there was a gap in knowledge that, kind of prevented that from happening. So like, how do you guys maintain that strict and, clear communication with your team to make sure that they feel comfortable being able to really be honest about their own capabilities?
Yeah, one of the things that I always look for, just in hiring, it doesn't matter if it's on the technical side or, front facing, it is that can do attitude. Like I
Mm,
love when people are like, yeah, I can do it.
yeah.
Now, to your point though, it's like when they take it back, it's like this natural feeling of they asked me to do something, and so I'm gonna over deliver.
Right.
And that over deliver can be something extremely complex
Yeah.
versus just trying to find something, just a quick exit and get it done right in a very simple manner. And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of challenges come in. And what we found is it comes back to that feedback loop, right? Like, sure, here's the project, but the model that I personally like working in is like, I want to be a part at, 0%. I
Mm,
want to check in at, 10%, me an update at 30,
yeah.
give me an update at 60%. I want to jump back in at 70% to decide if I want to, take it across the finish line, or if I feel like you got it under control. And, building some sort of strategy into it. Now, how do you gauge things at 0%, 20%? That's a
Right.
tough thing. But, just kind of general concept of like making sure that before you get too far ahead, that there's a check-in, because a lot of times it's like, hey, Quentin, we have this new project. Let's do something really cool.
Yeah.
And you're like trying to strap together 50 different things and all this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, no, no. I just wanted you to press a button over here because I can't reach it, right? Like it
Right.
could be something
Yeah.
as simple as that. But
Yeah.
that feedback
Over
loop is really
engineering
what,
it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where that feedback loop really comes in. And, just making sure that people are kind of progressing, and it helps them think the same way that you're thinking as well.
Got it. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And so one thing that you mentioned is that, when you were talking and meeting with investors and, potential private equity firms, a lot of them were like, well, we're not going to help you because we would want you to change this, this, and this, and you guys are already on your way, or, we don't want you to change something that you are wanting to change, something like that. And, you mentioned that some of it was unorthodox. And one of the things that I found unorthodox, and a lot of people are shocked by, is your 40%
Yeah.
affiliate commission. So for life, if I refer somebody to HighLevel using, an affiliate link, and they sign up for the rest of their subscription, I will receive 40% of every payment that they make to you guys on a monthly basis for not even talking to them. That's
Yeah.
pretty. 40%, 20% like industry average, okay, 15%, maybe 40%. That's a lot, especially because you have higher tiers too. So whose idea was it? How did it not backfire on you guys? And what role do you
Yeah.
think it really played in, where you guys are now, how you got to where you are?
Yeah, it was something that we wanted to put together early on. Something that Sean Vernon and I, we had lots of conversations like we need to figure out how to put together an affiliate program because we were looking at, other big products out there. They all had affiliate programs, and if you look at how they grew, it was through the affiliate program. We also kind of took a step back and looked at the grand landscape of software as a whole, and a lot of the largest companies, what they're doing is they're raising capital with the idea that, hey, we're going to take this money with this capital and ramp up sales,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what do you do to ramp up sales? You got to hire salespeople and all this, but none of them are
Spend ads.
profitable.
Right.
And so what we basically said is like, is there a world where we can kind of take what the affiliate world is doing and actually leverage that as our sales team? So we don't have to have a sales team internally.
Yeah.
We really believe that our product kind of speaks for itself and does great things in itself. And if we can just get the world to talk about it and also incentivize them along the way because they're already talking about it,
Yeah.
can't we win in that world? And now instead of us taking 40% of our gross revenue and having to build a sales team, we'll just give
Right.
that to our customers. And
Yeah.
now they feel more invested, more involved, and more part of the growth of the company. And kind of what I said early on, it's we want our customers to be a part of the party.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And, obviously we've seen people win Teslas. we've
Yeah.
seen, we've seen people quit full-time jobs, quit college, and make super successful six-figure careers purely off of becoming an expert in the software and then showing other people how to use it for their own business case and then earning 40% recurring commission.
Yeah,
And it's
it's
pretty
the
crazy. And, I think a lot of it too, what I saw has to do with the fact that you were already you were running a marketing agency beforehand, right? Like you were already doing digital marketing.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah. I
so I'm
mean,
sure, the affiliate model is more popular in that space.
yeah, exactly. I came from kind of the digital marketing world. I mean, that's really how High Level was kind of, spun out and kind of built upon, right? Like definitely from that use case. So it allowed us to kind of truly understand the customer needs and wants and the why. I think that's always the hard part. And, our model as a business is we're not trying to dictate too many things down to our customers, right? If you look at other software companies, it is what it is because we did the research and we did it this way and we thought that was the right way. And there are cases where we do kind of push that, but as a whole, it's we're listening to our customers
Right.
because you are the one that's in the trenches doing the work and you're
Sure.
representing it as yourself. And so early on, because had the agency and grew that to a decent size, we had a lot of exposure and understood a lot. So we were able to bring that in. And yeah, just being in the space, the affiliate market is also something that,
Right.
is really heavy there. So we wanted to kind of we kind of took the best of those roles because there's always the negative side. So we just wanted
Yeah.
to kind of peel away the good stuff about it.
Right.
And how do we leverage that and kind of build a model where it's sustainable?
Sure. Makes sense. And just on top of that, like you being in the digital marketing agency space yourself, knowing probably other digital marketing agencies who had those same issues. And so for the potential founders out there, for the people looking, to create a product that they think is really gonna be as big as, maybe High Level is one day. So definitely your environment, your networking matters. Your network is your net worth, as they say.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, there's a lot of great software developers and a lot of great founders who have created great product. The
Right.
problem is they can't figure out distribution.
Yeah.
And to that point that you just made, it comes down to the network that you're able to somehow get into
Right.
or the network that you currently have. If you're not trying to solve for that, your product is worthless, as
Yeah.
great as it can be. And I've seen so many great products that just went belly up because they were so deep into the technicals of what their product can do and they're geeking out about all these cool things, but it doesn't matter because no one can see it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I know I've already had you for 40 minutes. So the last thing I really want to chat about is the really crazy stuff. Chat GPT, OpenAI, AI in general, machine learning. I mean, it's crazy. First of all, just what's your thought on Chat GPT in general? I mean,
I mean, it's definitely it's awesome to see, where things have shifted and where things are at. I think you and I were talking about it. My biggest thing is like Microsoft is now back in the game, right? Like now they're the hot place, and everybody wants to work, with Microsoft now. Um, I definitely think that, some flavor of it will be the future. Um, I think the challenge that everyone is running into is how do you make it fundamentally useful without fundamentally shifting the whole world,
Hmm.
right? Because I
Okay.
think everyone is scared, like, oh, ChatGPT is going to change everything. But
Yeah.
it's also a small community of people that are actually using it at scale.
And yeah, I mean, the thing is like it's making national news on in some occasions. Like it's been on like national news
Yeah.
stations lately,
Yeah.
but in other ways, like I at Christmas, talked to all my family members. Only one of them was like, wow, that's incredible. That's crazy. The rest of them were like, cool, like let me know when it's a
Yeah,
robot,
exactly. When it's a
like
thing, right?
yeah, like let me know when it can do my job for me, Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like,
And I
okay.
kind of think it's very similar to like crypto. Like it can do cool things. Now,
Yeah,
how many people are actually doing it is
right.
a very small world. I do think there's a lot of cool functions and full capabilities, mostly in the marketing space. And we're going to be layering in a lot within high level, a lot of it where it can help spin up some baseline, text blocks or help you create a
Right.
blog or,
Yeah.
just doing really cool things in that nature. But is it ready to take on full conversation? Is it ready to doing, full on back and forth, natural, correction, things like that? Like I don't think it's at that level today.
Mm.
Maybe in 5 years,
You think
it'll
5?
be at the I think you'll start seeing people try to get into that world in 5 years
Okay.
where it's fully autonomous.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be, a decade where you're going to see that as kind of common play.
Right.
Like even you see stuff with Alexa, right?
Right.
And Amazon's actually turning down that business. They're, you know,
Wow.
so there wasn't a lot of adoption with Alexa as big as it
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
Siri, you could ask it questions and it can give you responses, but can you have a full-on conversation with it? And you start, people are always trying to give the random questions to see how it responds. I think that's going to take time. And then not only time to develop it, it's going to take time to actually make that common play
Yeah.
where that's a thing.
Yeah. No, I would agree on the fact that I don't think it's there yet today.
What I'm really interested in is when they start releasing, kind of the packaged code base
Mm.
so that you can build your own library
Right.
for your own internal business.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be two kind of industries that's going to pop up. One is, people who can really build AI algorithms for, call it a manufacturing company, right? And that manufacturing company builds, I don't know, cranes. And so now the sales guy or the salesperson can go in, type in kind of the requirements, and then it spits out kind of a perfect proposal and everything
Sure.
else.
Yeah. 100%.
So there's going to be that industry that's going to, and then I think cybersecurity is going to be just as important because people have to protect that data
Yeah.
because all
100%.
it takes is someone to inject negative content in there. And to
Right.
your point, right? It can start sending out false information
Yeah.
and things like that. And I don't know if people have paid attention to OpenAI. It doesn't do anything with current news,
Right. Yeah.
anything current or anything actual that's happening today. And because I think they're worried that now you're exposing false information and
Right.
opportunities for
Yeah.
vulnerabilities and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so they're trying to protect it as people are trying to test it out today.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is like I think the next step naturally is connecting it to the open live internet and having it have the ability to cite its sources. That's like the number one thing where it's like, and that's what Google does say though. And so that's where we're kind of like, is this going to be a conversational Google where it's like, hey, I looked it up on the internet and here's the things that I found and here's why I think that, and like give a summary with sources basically.
Yeah. I mean, my take on kind of the 5 year mark is where Chat GPT is not a thing. Like it's
Mm,
just everyday world use where, you know, where you don't realize it's this other thing. It's like right now, when you need to search something on the internet, what do you do?
Google.
Google, right? Like
Right.
it's not even a brand anymore. It's just a thing you do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I mean, where you'll start seeing that shift in mindset starting in about 5 years. I definitely agree to your point though. Like companies going to pop up and do really niche specific things and come up with
Mhm.
cool ideas. That's going to happen. And you always get the internet marketer take on it where people are now selling courses on how to do stuff in
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
If it was me and if I had to start a new business today, I'll tell you, that one of the biggest indicators is Google. That they threw the red flag that ChatGPT could ruin their whole business, right?
Yeah.
And if I was going to the business, I would try to figure out how to build a new search model that
Yes.
could allow advertisers or businesses advertise within the
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
And you can go to market so much faster than Google can pull it off because they're running this massive, what is it, a $200 billion a year operation with kind of this existing model. So to try
Yeah.
to figure out this new search landscape and then shift the whole business into it, it's going to take them a really long time. And I think somebody else could come in and easily jump into being the next multi-billion-dollar company because it's become very conversative, very natural, and you just have to figure out how to offer it for free to the consumer and
Yeah.
letting advertisers, be a
Yeah.
part
Make
of
money
it.
off the advertising. Yeah.
And now
And
you're the
that's,
next Google.
dude, honestly, I see it. The thing that I truly see is one, if Google's that worried, Google has one, a bigger team than Microsoft. They have a way bigger global team than Microsoft. And two, a bigger data silo than Microsoft. They have way more data just generally about local businesses, national businesses, like everything is on in Google's database versus Microsoft has, they just have like LinkedIn. That's really their biggest and most valuable data silo, I think.
Yeah, I mean they have Bing. I mean, both of them are large, massive organizations, right? I think the challenge though is you're fundamentally changing what's making you billions and billions of dollars today.
Right. Yeah.
So being able to create something new and change that model is a huge feat because you
Yeah.
also have to remember you're talking about hundreds of thousands of employees who don't want change, who
Yeah.
don't want to do new things, unless if you're brought in as a new team there. But you know, a smaller team can come in and create kind of a smaller world and,
Right.
and grow it. They don't
Yeah.
have to unchange anything. There's no deprogramming that's involved.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where like I know Google will accomplish it. So you know,
Yeah.
don't misconstrue what I'm saying. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is if somebody else wanted to play, you have the opportunity to jump in and take over a $200 billion market and just
Yeah. I mean that
if you can't,
yeah.
being a smaller player in that world is
Yeah.
still a really good
It's still a
game
good,
to
yeah.
be
It's still,
in.
I'd take 10% of $1 trillion market cap for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. It's do you want to create courses and make decent money or do you want to make crazy money? So
Yeah.
that's kind of where like if I had to start over, like I'd kind of figure out like really sit down and figure out how advertisers can be a part of it and then how do you offer, the concept of search through, an AI driven conversation and kind of
Sure.
play in both lanes there. And if you could pull
Sure.
that off, I think you're
I could see it as a concierge service. That would be probably the first place of like if you need a knowledge content, think about Masterclass, right? So masterclass.com is a multi-million dollar company now. If they implemented something like this where they loaded all of the transcripts for all of the authors and all of the, courses that are there, if I said I want to learn a little bit more about this, it could ask me questions about my personality, how I learn, and then it can match me with people based off of that. So that's really about the only thing I can see. But in terms of like, yeah, digital ads, if you have direct access to the information, you don't need to go through a link. So
yeah.
I understand that. And, Microsoft doesn't even have a search product right now, really. I mean,
Well, they have Bing.
they have Bing, but they don't, who cares? Bing.
Well,
I
it's
don't know. Maybe I severely underestimate Bing, but I definitely have not actually used Bing in a long
yeah.
time.
I mean, it's still big, but in the grand scheme of things, it's smaller compared to Google. But it's the default search provider of anyone who has a new computer around the
Yeah.
world.
Windows.
A new
Yeah.
Windows computer, right?
Yeah.
So, how many people don't download Chrome? How many people, just kind of use the stuff out of the box? No, over time, those same people are also getting pop-ups and banners and stuff like
Yeah,
that to
those
take away
and
from
those
it. But
people are also the ones who are not spending a lot of money on search results because they're probably not even on their computer very much because the search experience is just not as good as Google. Google is much, much better,
yeah,
at returning
yeah.
information.
And this is kind of the fun part of this conversation because like if you kind of take a step back of like Google, you need a plumber. What is the search term? Plumber near me,
Right.
right? And so now think about that in the chat GPT space.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I need a plumber. And it naturally knows that you're looking for plumbers within
Your
your
area.
location,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so now can you get advertisers to play into that, or can it give relevant resources
Well, and is
within
it better?
context? And that's kind of my point, right? Like, is it easier
Right. Is
and
it a better
ultimately
user
easier than Google?
experience?
And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I mean of like that's your opportunity to play in a $1 trillion industry
Yeah. But in
versus
terms of local
creating a course or
service,
something.
yeah, no, it's just that in terms of local service, I don't see it being a true competitor. But in terms of like knowledge sourcing, recruiting, because that's what I was going to ask you is like, man, you've done a lot of hiring, and I know we're coming up on our time now, so I want to make sure I just get your thought on this. You've done a ton of hiring, right? I'm sure either you or the people that you've employed contracted to do the hiring and the initial screening has technical interviews that they have to go through. They have kind of an initial screening. Tell us about yourself. I want to know about your resume, all that kind of stuff. And that's meant to really get to know you and your skills. But now it's not the same, right? Now I have a tool that can give you exactly what you're looking for, and you won't know until you talk to me and see, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And so it's like we're losing that kind of filter, and we're going to constantly just need people to people interactions. I see that, but I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about how
Yeah,
the hiring process is going to change?
I think the hiring process is still going to come down to your point, right? That human connection is going to be super important. And then it's also important to suss out, well, you could have someone who's extremely book smart, but are they street smart or can they really understand the application use and actually put it in a real world use case? That's really what you have to suss out for. Now, I think, there's always a blend and everything always really winds up in the middle. You have the extreme where you don't use, technology and then you use technology, but the answer is always in the middle. And I think, the middle is somewhere where maybe the first part of it is using, some sort of conversation based tool like ChatGPT to do kind of the initial questions and maybe initial, first part of the screening or something like
Right.
that. But I don't think that you'll ever be able to blindly hire somebody to accomplish something in a world where there's nuance.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't think, technology is able to predict that nuance or
Sure.
sense emotion or just read
Sure.
it, right? And I think until we're there, the human level of it is always going to be the more important strength through that interview
Yeah.
process and recruiting and really growing business as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely don't think AI is going to take over the interviewing and hiring process. What I more so mean is now you have to talk to somebody in person to know if they're not full of crap or not, because this tool is available to everybody for free and is so openly available on the other side of that form that you're filling out. You don't know,
Yeah.
like, and so that's what I'm saying from a logistics standpoint. You had to hire how many people this year?
Yeah. I think we hired close to 150.
150.
Yeah.
Okay. And so out of how many applicants do you think, if you had to guess, of like how many people
Oh,
actually applied?
10,000. Yeah. I mean, and now how many of those are actually valid applicants and stuff like that? Like,
Okay. Well, so this is where I'm getting to is if we're talking about 1,000 people that are applying and 90% of them have access to ChatGPT and they make it to the interview round, right? Like now, how do you combat that? And it's the same thing with education. That was my next point is like, as our kids are going to start going to school, and like I have a brother who's 15 in high school and he found out about this. And now he's like, yeah, I don't really do my homework anymore. It just kind of tells me the answer. And
yeah.
I usually average about a 90. And I was like, you're not learning.
Yeah. It comes back to the ones who take the system, for what it is and do it the right way. They're always going to be available and do the right thing. People that try to game the system, use examples like Indeed. If you put a job post out there, people don't even realize there's many people who go on there looking for a job and they're just hitting apply, apply, apply,
Yeah.
apply.
Yeah.
Don't even read it. And they're just sending out their resume,
There's a
hoping
Python script for it now.
yeah, exactly, right. And now if you add more filtering questions, that does help filter out a little bit. You might want to go on the advanced side adding more technical questions or something. Now you have ChatGPT. So the filtering process just gets a little bit more challenging. But the ultimate answer, at least in the today world, and what we do is you got to pick up the phone and call and talk to someone and hear them out. And you can at least get a good gut feeling on
Yeah.
if they're gonna,
Yeah.
pass the snuff test or not. But
Yeah.
there's also interesting stats of like for every person that stays with you longer than a year, you have to hire you keep 2 out of 5 people to basically pull that stat.
What do you
You know,
mean?
so for every 5 people that you hire, 2 will stay longer than a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. So less than
So
50%.
yeah, less than 50%. And I think the next stat is like a half of or a quarter of people, at scale stay to 3 years.
Yeah.
So the 2 that stay, you only get, you know, maybe one of those 2 people will make it to 3
Yeah.
years, but it's a
Maybe
very
half of them will
small
stay.
amount,
Yeah.
right? So you got to get the number up to 20
Yeah.
hires to get people to stay over 3 years. And
Yeah.
that, no, that's on average. And of course, there's better statistics, better companies and stuff that you want to hedge against. But it's just a interesting thought process. And you're absolutely right. The hiring model and the way that you're trying to bring people on is fundamentally going to change. But I think you just always have to layer in like true human interaction is always going to win.
Absolutely. But it's that to me, the only thing I'm thinking about with it it's the most expensive form of interaction. It's face-to-face video call. I mean, just me even being able to get you on here for almost an hour now is, I can't even fathom how valuable it is, in terms of your hourly rate at this point. So, break that down even farther where you got people who are, like you said, technical experts. That was what you were talking about earlier, that who's usually the person that has to do the interview is the technical expert who's going to actually be able to filter out all these people. And you got to have them now verifying, double checking everybody, because who knows if they actually filled out this information themselves or if they're totally full of crap. It's like,
Yeah, it's the high risk, high reward kind of thing. You do have to put your best talent to be able to do the interviews, because if you don't, then I think you're it becomes an even higher risk of hiring someone, that can just scrape through the system because no one is doing that filtering process. And
yeah,
the better person that you can get on your team, the stronger that individual, the stronger that the back end results will be.
sure.
So it's definitely an interesting philosophy and thing that, I think it takes multiple iterations to get it right. There's no one hit wonder that you'll be able to
Yeah.
pull it off. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch in the next 12 months to see how people shift. And, the other piece that people forget about is it's in beta, and they're very open to saying like, this has been offered as a grant by many major companies to try out because they want to see what adoption looks like.
Mm.
The second that they turn it off, this is all going to be forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying though, is, and I don't want to keep going because I can, but like then you create a barrier of wealth. So it's like, okay, well, if you can't afford $10 a month or $20 a month, I can. So I have access to this tool and you don't. I can get more interviews than you can. And right, it's networking. If maybe I'm not the top technical person, but if I can answer as a top technical person and then get you to like me on the interview and vibe with you really well, I have a better chance of getting that job than the person who is just genuinely better at technical skills. I don't know. We'll see, man. It's gonna be
It's
crazy 2023. But
yeah.
overall, man, Rob and Alex, co-founder of HighLevel, I appreciate your time so much, man. I know it's super valuable. I hope that you and your entire team and your family and everybody has a wonderful 2023. And if anybody has any questions, which I did have a few questions written down, I forgot to ask, but I got too excited anyway. So, so yeah, man, appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And as always, we'll see you. We'll see you next year, man. Can't wait to see what it has in store.
Thank you, and wish you and your family and your business a great 2023 as well.